Hello, everyone. Good morning. Everyone's fine. So, what are we here today for? You remember? Mostly Here a Million has the panels in the evenings. Today, we are having a session morning, 11 o'clock, 11 to 12:30. Really nice to see so many people joining us. Thank you so much. Let me introduce myself. I'm Tushar. This is my sign name. I work at Enable India at the HAM project, Here a Million project. With the team, it's been 2 years and a half, more than that, in fact. And time for Gayatri. Please introduce yourself, Gayatri. Welcome.
Tushar, and hello everybody. My name is Gayatri, and that's my sign name. Okay, I work with Tushar in his team as part of the Here a Million. So I work with the dev team at Enable India. So I'll be moderating this panel discussion today, and I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gayatri, for that introduction. What are we here for today? We're talking about stories in sign language and ISL for everyone, right? And this is a perfect timing because September is the International Week of the Deaf. So perfectly aligned, this program. And we would also have the International Day of Sign Languages. So our program is perfectly, related to that International Day of Sign Languages, the theme. So signing stories, mostly parents, mostly hearing parents, you see how children be able to bond with their parents because of the stories. There's so much of storytelling. Parents share a lot of stories. They communicate with their kids. So that's how they bond. But when parents are hearing and the children are deaf, what happens then? Are they able to connect with stories? We will, talk about these points. At the same time, we will discuss about the stories, the videos, performance-related videos which are there, especially for the hearing community, which are very, very accessible. There are so many episodes and serials on TV, and hearing people have so many options, so many choices. But do you think the same choices and options are there for the deaf? So we are going to have a panel to discuss all these topics. Gayatri, would you like to add something?
Well, no, not really.
All right then. Okay. So yes, let us first introduce our panelist, Pavitra.
Hi, hi everybody. I'm a hearing person and I do know sign language. But in the panel, when it comes to introductions and asking the questions, I'm more comfortable speaking. That's why Dr. Renu and Saurav, I'm more confident in my speaking than in my sign language. So that's why we have inclusion champions. So thank you so much for that. Very, very excited to introduce our first panelist, who is Pavitra Rajgopal. Very warm welcome to you, Pavitra. So just to very quickly introduce, her to all of us, Pavitra is a perennial student, always a learner. She has been working in the social development sector for 13 plus years, and her passion and commitment to making the world more inclusive motivated her to start Signs in Stories. And that is what we're going to be asking and speaking to her about today. So welcome, Pavitra.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I would now like to request Tushar to ask Pavitra the first question.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for joining, Pavitra. And the question, Signs in Stories, right? There's a YouTube channel. Can you tell us about Signs in Stories and why did you start this initiative? And how can we all benefit from it, especially deaf children, general? Yes, please. You're on mute, Pavitra.
Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. And as a child, I loved reading stories, and there were so many options to choose from: comic books, storybooks, short stories, novels. There was so much to choose from. But as I grew up, I realized that deaf children don't have this choice. They don't have as many books to choose from. In fact, there are very little stories available in Indian Sign Language, which a deaf child can choose to read from. So that is why it motivated me to start Signs and Stories, a YouTube channel which has stories from Storyweaver, which is an open source platform where there are many stories, contextual to the Indian culture as well. So that was important for me to make sure that deaf children watching these stories are able to see themselves there. It is relatable. So that is what motivated me to start. And the videos on my channel are inclusive for everyone. There is captions, there is also voice narration. So deaf children can actually watch it with their parents and with their hearing friends at the same time.
Fantastic. I absolutely agree that stories, when made accessible, are really enjoyable, but there is a lot of inequality when hearing and deaf children and the communities you talk about in terms of stories and access. So thank you so much, Pavitra. We will invite you again for the next question. Next, we would like to invite Pallavi.
Tushar, are you going to be doing the introduction for Pallavi?
All right. Thank you
Or shall
so
I?
much for that answer, Pavitra. Really nice to know about why you started Signs and Stories, and I'm sure all of us will get to see the YouTube channel and explore it later. On that note, I'd now like to invite the second panelist, Pallavi. Thank you so much for being a part of this today. We're all really big fans of the work that you and your team do at Haryana, and it's really we're very happy to have you here today. So I'm sure everybody here may already know you. I'm just going to give you a very quick introduction for those who may not. So Pallavi has been actively working in the area of bilingual deaf education for the past decade and manages projects at the 8 Deaf School at Haryana Welfare Society for Persons with Speech and Hearing Impairment, Haryana. And she is currently pursuing her PhD in psychology. She is passionate about education, mental health, and accessibility. I would now like to request Tushar to ask Pallavi the next question.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for joining. So our question is, based on your experience, you have been involved in so many different kind of initiatives, and you have been encouraging education for deaf. What I want to ask you is, can you share why you believe the representation of deaf children in stories is important? Yes, that's a great question. Because I think stories have power. Stories are powerful. As a girl, as a woman, growing up, there were so many books, videos. Most of the stories are like, for example, all these superheroes, Spider-Man, Superman, they're all men, and I used to wonder, where are the female superheroes? But then I did find Spider-Woman, and I was really interested because, that feeling, women, female, same. Didn't want to, I was more interested in knowing about female superheroes and wanted to emulate or wanted to copy Spider-Woman. But what about the deaf kids? They don't get to emulate deaf superheroes, how do they connect to these stories from the hearing culture? Where is the place for stories from the deaf culture? So in US, you have deaf culture stories, right? You have this the story called The Boy. So that was a well-written story, but this is an American culture, and it has been translated in Indian Sign Language at the DSL. Sapan translated that story, but you understand the cultural context don't match. We want to have a deaf superhero from India signing in ISL regarding the Indian deaf culture. So that was, something I really thought about. So it also has to be in both book as well as video format, for children to start getting interested and connecting. You're right, Pallavi, most of the stories are from hearing community, hearing culture. So where do we connect? Where is that connection? Yeah. And when you're saying as a woman, when you see these stories like the Spider Woman, these stories, I'm sorry, we need to ensure, can we just announce the mics to be muted? It's a little distracting. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. It's a little distracting to have the voices. Yeah. Yes, Pallavi. So your point is like deaf children growing up, there has to be stories which inspire, and that is how you build your aspirations. So I hope in the future there are many stories. I would like to share, Ashish and Abha. Uh, there were 4 years we discussed. They're two deaf people we discussed. We were working together. We discussed about a deaf superhero who would sign like this, and the episodes went like this. If there were problems at home, parents couldn't communicate, this deaf superhero would come and say, hey, parents must sign. We should learn sign language. And then the parents would, because of the fear of the superhero, would learn sign language. In classrooms, when the teachers don't sign, it's always oral classroom. The superhero would be there and like, hey, teachers, your job is at stake. And then the teachers would, in fear. So, but it never materialized. That's really cool. That's a really nice idea. We want something like this, if it can be made and become viral in the community. Yeah, I really hope so. So yes, Pallavi, we will have you on for the next question. Can we now invite Chintan? Chintan, if you're there, can you please raise your hand so that you can be spotlighted? It's okay if Chintan is not there. Maybe we can invite the next panelist. Hi, Chintan, we can see you. Can you just, yeah. All right, hello. Thank you, Chintan. That's your sign name? Yeah. So just wanted to, you're from a deaf family, right? And you are also involved at Orchard Foundation as the communication uh, assistant at Orchard Foundation, correct? Thank you so much, Chintan, for joining. So the first question to you is that, working at Orchard Foundation, can you share like a brief overview of the kind of content you're making, accessible content that Orchard Foundation has developed for children? I know that these are being made accessible. So yeah, please share. So at Orchard Foundation, our goal is to encourage deaf children, because we see there's a lot of gap, and we want to mitigate that. After school, when the deaf children come in, there is no communication at home with their parents, even at schools. But with sign language, literacy jumps, it becomes much better. And there are over 100 deaf children. Yeah, we have a lot of applications from deaf children, and we see there's so much of interest. So we arrange teachers. It's been more than a year and a half. And I am like the assistant. I take care of all the applications, ensure that the calls are made, the coordinated batches are running well. Yeah, just want to add on, is it online on Zoom, the classes? Yes, our classes are online. Most of the applications. But then, sometimes in very rural places, the internet is not good. At Orchid Foundation, all our content, especially related to general knowledge, math, stuff like that, those YouTube videos are on the website. So we always ask parents, if the internet is good, they can join the classes. Otherwise, we direct them to the website. So all the websites have the links to the YouTube videos, right? That's really, really great. So who are the people who are signing these videos? Are they deaf? Yeah, we get specifically hire about 3 to 4 deaf teachers we have. And the videos, both the stories as well, the teaching related videos. So we have 2 types of content on the website. Thank you, Chintan. We will have you over for the next question. Next, can we please welcome Rajesh? Hello, good morning. Hi, Rajesh. Rajesh is the director at Mukbadir Mandal, plus also works with Orjet Foundation in the education as director. So you all know Mukbadir Mandal is one of the most viral video platforms in India. So request Gayatri to take the question, give the question to Rajesh now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tushar. I'll just wait. Okay, the interpreter has been pinned. All right. Thank you. So Rajesh, we just heard Chintan talk about the online initiatives that Orchid Foundation does. You all have so many stories and study materials that are available in Indian Sign Language for the deaf children. So my next question to you is just adding to what was already shared by Chintan, which is that while there are a lot of deaf schools that the children go to, we also know that there are many deaf children who attend a lot of the online classes that you take, in the evenings after school hours. And we know of there's a lot of change and transformation that we have heard of in the deaf students, after they attend some of your classes. So we were just interested to know what sort of content, do you share with them? And in your opinion, from your experience, what do you think actually enables these kids to transform in a very limited time? If you could just share your journey with us.
Yes. I just want to know that should I keep it brief now, or yeah, you can please feel free to share. Hello, everyone, all friends. Good morning. Congratulations to everyone for the International Deaf Week coming soon. Want to thank Enable India for having me here. So, I have like 2 roles, and actually 3, because working with MBM and also working at Orjet Foundation. But primarily, the only community I work with is the deaf community. So I also do work with Unity, and my focus is to ensure the transformation and building confidence of deaf children, because I myself come from a deaf family, and my experiences I'm sorry, somebody did spotlight themselves. All right, I took care of that. So, I wondered why my literacy skills were also very, very bad growing up. I never understood why this happened. With Ishara Foundation in 1998, Renuka ma'am, can you please mute the mics? Your co-host, you can do that.
I'm doing that, yes.
Sure. So, mostly we were focusing on young adults. But, we felt that even though we were teaching them, they were unable to comprehend and pick up those skills very quickly. So we understood that we have to start young. Because by the time they're young adults, that age group, they're too far, the time gap, they have lost on that time. And, they were also working, they were doing other vocational trainings and stuff like that. So it was difficult for them. And 2 years during COVID, there were no schools, how deaf children suffered. So I spoke with Manan and I spoke with Sarvesh that why not we, sorry, just give us 1 second. Yeah, apologies for that. Requesting all participants to please not interrupt the flow of the event. Yeah, Rajesh here. So Manan said, and the team discussed that why not start focusing on some kind of educational content, focusing primarily on ISL. As time went by, we saw that there was so much of confidence in these deaf children who joined our classes. Because, this is how it works. The young deaf adults, they keep sharing their experiences with these deaf children. And parents who are hearing, who don't sign, it's very difficult for them to teach. And I also was not able to teach. Because I know the challenges about the deaf community, the deaf children. I do a lot of work with them regarding their way of life, living a good life and stuff like that. But during the educational content, we realize that 5% work is us, but 95% of work has to be done by themselves. The reason why we put Orjet Foundation is we wanted to see what excites these children. We wanted to provide a platform where they feel free and interested about something. The rest of the work automatically follows, We saw that, if, we have to get in more young adults. Our age group, doesn't work. So, for example, a cow, we tried to show them some examples related to different kind of animals, a fun way of learning, and not tell the children directly, but use the metaphors of animals and stuff like that, where we saw the children were very, very interested. We tried to learn how children actually learn. We wanted to adapt to their ways of learning, and that is what the team worked on. Second thing was the resources. We wanted to make these things relatable. I am from a deaf family. I have a deaf wife, but I have two hearing children, and I couldn't teach them. That's what Rajesh was saying. Sorry, I missed that. That it was very difficult for me to teach my hearing children. So I used to observe my deaf kids, and they told me that they're learning so much from YouTube, different kinds of content, and they had a lot of fun ways and fun resources. So I was like, what about these deaf kids? This is what actually prompted me to talk about this with Zoom. So this is how the Orjet Foundation website came in, where we started developing educational resources on maths, literacy, education, stories, general knowledge, stuff like that. And there's also a lot of work we still have to do. And I saw that children, want to learn independently. And we want them to not depend on others for learning. So for this, we need to provide a lot of resources. And of course, then the teaching. So it has to be a dual method. Thank you, Rajesh. We, as you said, that we do not want to continue the generational, communication gap and learning gap, and don't want it to go on to the next generations as well. And you're not talking about academic content and not just giving and piling them on with resources, but asking what these deaf kids actually want and what they actually learn, and learning from their barriers and their challenges, and developing materials and learning tools related to that, which is really helping them develop and grow. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. We'll have you over for the next question. Thank you, Rajesh. Next, if we could please welcome Ankit Vishwakarma. Hello, Ankit. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your sign name, and you are the project coordinator of the early intervention at Haryana Welfare Society for persons with speech and hearing impairment, right? And you're also, the 8 early intervention centers at the society, at the 8 different places you have been managing all the early intervention teachers. It's been almost 5 years of you working. Yeah. It's been 2018 to 2023. So Gayatri, could you take the question?
Thank you, Tushar. All right. Hi, Ankit. Very nice to meet you. I think so far we've already heard of so many interesting initiatives to make content accessible for not only children who are deaf, but also children who are hearing, and they can learn and enjoy this content together, be it Science and Stories or even Orjet Foundation. And since you work at, Haryana Welfare Society, what we would like to ask you is what sort of accessible content, has Haryana made? If you could just share a few examples of content that has been developed, just for all of us here to know what choices you've been able to provide deaf children.
Thank you for the question. Well, actually, growing up as a deaf kid, there are about 300 to so many kids. Do you think you had access to content? We get information and accessible content so late in life, and I'm sure these experiences are shared. And understanding, what access means, what content actually means. We missed out on so many years. These teachers were not able to provide us with quality, accessible education. And do we want this to continue with the future generations of deaf children? No. Information, knowledge, content has to be accessible. So the teachers at Haryana Welfare Society have totally understood the need that courses, educational content is not accessible. There is so much material on YouTube, which is, hearing kids have no problem. They listen to it from the most early of their years. And the same is not available for deaf children. With this in mind, we set up the Digital Sign Library. The library focuses on various content, making primarily coursework, curriculum material in various subjects, all school subjects, primarily class 1 to 12. It may be science, it may be math, translating these materials in sign language so that deaf children can look at these videos, understand the concept, and then use it for their education. So the content which is being translated is both for Haryana board as well as NCERT. And just like in videos which are made for hearing people, you would see the material as well as someone speaking it, right? The same is being done with the content in the background and a person translating it. And there are like tons and tons of this kind of content. But now, what about the deaf children? So the DSL, there is like a wealth of knowledge, more than like thousands of videos, but that content is not for deaf children. The early intervention team at Haryana Welfare Society has internally, a process where we understand that we have to focus on the children. So the DSL, of course, is the main place where there are a lot of videos. But the early intervention, the content which we are making is, we keep informing the DSL team that this is the kind of content we need. This is for the deaf children. So that deaf kids also have specific content. It may be cartoonish, it's very relatable to kids because, academic content for deaf children, that's not how they learn. So since we have like a great team of deaf signers who can make the material very, very child friendly, a lot of repetition, a lot of expressions, a sing-song performative kind of content. We want to make the material so interesting so that, deaf children are interested. Because once that interest develops, we know that, deaf children can, develop that kind of interest. And we do not want language deprivation to continue. Because the critical period, those years are very, very important. Only when the foundational skills in language are done, can they then go on and be able to, use all the content in DSL and all of that, right? Of course. Thank you so much, Ankit. Your important, the point which you shared, that it's very important to focus on the kids. I hope, this spreads all over India. And we will have another question for you, Ankit. Next, can we invite Pavitra?
Yes.
All right, Pavitra, like you said, Signs and Stories, your YouTube channel, what is your vision? And how would you like the deaf community to be involved in this initiative, in this, the YouTube channel, the content which you're making?
Thank you. The vision I have is to make sure that in addition to educational materials, which are very important for deaf children, that they have fun. They have a choice to have fun. So my focus is in Signs and Stories to have a lot of stories which are, with animals, you learn about different topics. But at the end of the day, the children have fun. And I actually envision a large number of stories available like this across genre for children across various age groups, that they can come and choose what story they would like to watch and discuss with their friends, criticize it, talk about what they like, what they don't like. So that it also kindles their imagination, it improves exposure, lot of things. So that is my vision. And I would also hope that Signs and Stories becomes one of the resources for teachers, parents, librarians in schools to promote the habit of watching stories, so that children can watch stories for fun. They can do it independently, they can do it together with their friends, because it is inclusive. So it also promotes a lot of conversations about various topics around the world. And I would invite the deaf community to get involved in three ways with Signs and Stories. One is, visit the channel, pick a story you like, watch it with the deaf child that you know. I think there's a lot of fun in just watching the story together. The second is to spread the word with the community that you are aware of. And thirdly, share experiences of your life with us so that we are able to create a story and put it up on the channel so that there is representation of deaf community and the deaf culture. I completely agree with my co-panelist Pallavi, who said that about a deaf superhero. So I feel that there is a lot of relatability when a deaf child or a deaf parent or the experiences of learning sign language is represented in stories, and it makes it relatable, and it is also a wonderful way for the hearing community to learn about the deaf community. So it is not preachy, it is not about you did not know this, but it is in a fun way. It is through stories that everybody learns about both the hearing culture and also the deaf culture. So that is the vision I have for Signs and Stories.
Super. Thank you so much for sharing these perspectives. And we will definitely at the end showcase the YouTube channel because there's so many people here, Signs and Stories. We will definitely show it to them. So once all the panelists and the questions are done, we will have like a quick showcasing of your YouTube channel, and we welcome everyone to subscribe and go on to see the content, the very interesting content, which is going to be very enjoyable. Signs and Stories.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pavitra. And next, can we invite our second panelist, Pallavi? Can we please spotlight Pallavi? All right. So, Pallavi, we want to know your perspective about what more needs to be done for deaf children to have more choices and more access to stories. As we know, there's not so much of access. So what do you think is needed to be done for deaf children to have more choices in stories and more access to different kind of contents, video, and all these things? So what do you feel? Great. So I think there are two ways. First thing is the hearing community, there's so many stories. There's drama, there are a lot of content which can be translated in ISL. So that's what we have been doing, right? Translating content from hearing culture. But at the same time, I'm sure deaf people want to know about their experiences, their stories. And we know there are, there's deaf humor, deaf jokes, for example. You know about the story, right? The deaf and the hearing person driving together, and the police one catches the deaf person, and then the hearing person, they act like the hearing, acts like a deaf person. So, once you get connected to the deaf community, you get to know there's so much of content, but these things are not being published. There's not there in a book form. So I think storybooks in sign language are really important. Videos are good, but you need tech, you need online, and all these things can be navigated by deaf adults or deaf young adults. But books, are easily accessible, and you see print form, there is not much interest. Why? Because the content is not there. And when you see a deaf child in the book, in a print form, or a deaf superstar or a deaf superhero, so we need illustration and the idea, so of course you need the idea and you need the proper illustration. These things have to be wedded together so that we have a great print form of a story. And this can definitely become viral if this kind of a thing goes on to the deaf community. Yeah, Pallavi, this is actually the truth. There's so much of these kind of stories in the hearing community, but we do need more in the deaf community. So this has to be a teamwork, right? Like you said, people come together and develop these kind of materials and then shares it with the community. So hopefully, you know, the kind of collective we are forming, more and more collaborations can then ensure there is more content which can be developed and shared with the community. Yes. Next, we would like to invite Chintan. Hello, Chintan. Yeah, great. So we have a few more questions. So the next question which I have for you is that, you know, for parents, based on your experiences, what are the best practices you want to share with other parents to bond with their children? You know, because most of the hearing parents of deaf children do not know sign language. There's a lot of isolation of these deaf children face. When the parents are deaf and the child is deaf, there is no communication problem, at least, and the child is not isolated. So what will be some points which you want to share with parents, both deaf and hearing, to bond with their children? Right. So I have a deaf child, you know, he's 13 years old, and I am from a deaf family. So my family, you know, takes care. They are with my kid. And whenever there are any kind of outings, any kind of programs, they're always there. It's not like, we don't take our kids or leave them with the grandparents. Wherever we go out, our kid goes with us so that they can learn. And you're saying both deaf and hearing parents. At home, like with my family, we are all deaf. There is another family close by, their parents are hearing and their child is deaf. So what they do, you know, weekends, the whole day that kid comes here and he loves that experience so much. And it's understandable because the parents are hearing, right? There's no communication, there's so much of loneliness. So that child comes over to my place and he's here the whole day connecting and mingling with my family and my kids. So the thing is, if the parents know sign language, it's okay. But if not, you have to allow these deaf kids to meet other parents and children who are deaf and allow them to actually be with them. Hopefully something like this, you know, in the future. So you said that your parents are deaf. So what kind of experience have you had with, do you tell your parents? See, my parents, you know, they are deaf, but oh, so I'm so sorry. I'm talking about the hearing parents. The hearing parents, you know, have you advised or, counseled them about learning sign language? Yes, I have, but, you know, they have not been able to learn. They communicate in gesture. But the thing is, most parents, they need to actually introspect a lot. I would say that, maybe if the school experiences are good, but what about the societal experiences? So we need tuitions. We also need resources which can be provided. So, you know, it's the family, it's the resources. So like at Orjit, we provide classes, that's tuition, as well as resources. And if parents think that only the school can take care of all the education, that doesn't happen, right? Parents also have a lot of responsibility. And I just want to quickly add a little bit that my kid, you know, I really want to thank Orjet Foundation because the school here, they follow Gujarati, and that's the medium of instruction. But when they come to Orjet, they are focusing a lot on English development. And at school, you know, I have noticed that even though the kid learns on their own, he has fared very well in the examinations, in the English examinations, because of the teachings from Orjet Foundation. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Chintan. Can we now invite Rajesh back? Rajesh, if you could please just raise your hand so that we can spotlight you. Gayatri, yeah, if you could please ask the question.
Thanks for that. So Rajesh, just building on what Chintan was sharing from his own personal experience of, being a parent who was deaf and also his own experience when he was growing up. Adding to that, our next question to you is, we of course know you come with a lot of experience of counseling or spending time with parents to help them understand how they can actually bond better with their child, who is deaf. And there are many hearing parents who may not actually know how to go about doing that. And in this call today, we very intentionally invited a lot of hearing parents and teachers to be on this call just to learn a new perspective, and just hear from those working in this field. So we would all actually love to hear from you on what message or what you would like to share with them, based on your experience of what parents can keep in mind, when it comes to bonding with their child.
Thank you. Like Chintan explained, can you all see me? So Chintan, I was looking at what he was sharing, how his kid is learning both at school and at Orchid Foundation. So the experience in Gujarat, when the kids go to school, we also have deaf parents come meet us every Friday. We don't have hearing parents yet. That is something in the pipeline. But, we have people like Sunil, we have Manan, Rajesh, I'm there, and we connect with these deaf parents because we bring along a lot of experiences. As a coda, as a deaf coda, then, there are other people like Sunil, who is from deaf parents, Deepak, who is from deaf parents. So we counsel deaf parents. And, before the counseling, we want to listen to them first. What are their experiences? Because without listening to them, we have to create a space for them to share their experiences. That's what, that's when they come and tell us that, our kids don't listen to us. It's difficult for us to teach. We are unable to, they don't understand our learnings. And I also have hearing kids, so I can relate to what they are actually sharing. So parent and kid, the child bonding is so important. More important than teachers bonding with the kids, because the child is spending so much time at home. So to help these parents, we develop certain kind of resources so that they can start connecting with their kids. Because mostly it's the same A, B, C, A for apple, B for boy, and the aim is not English. The aim is to develop communication. The aim is to develop bonding and connection with the kids. So we try to help these parents so that, because most of the kids are so focused on the phones because there's no connection with their parents. And, when we touch upon these points, it makes so much of sense. We can see that. They also share that the school, is not that great. Deaf schools are really far off. They cannot accommodate, so much of travel. But in actuality, the school system is also very important because the learning, interpreters are not available. Teachers are not so very fluent in sign language. Accessibility is not a concern. So where is the learning happening? And most of the parents tell us that our kids are learning so much from these ORJET classes. So this is just our area, right? Let's think about entire India. We want to establish in the future a great educational institute for deaf. And this has been, we have been talking in the community to have an educational institute for the deaf, but it's still not materialized. Now let's talk about hearing parents. We do plan to connect with hearing parents or have these kind of workshops, right? See, the deaf parents, their reading and writing might be difficult. I understand their challenges, but we also are planning to connect and have workshops with hearing parents. The kind of challenges which have been shared, the discussions we had with these deaf parents would actually help us and share more experiences and resources with hearing parents. Right, Rajesh? So, when hearing parents have deaf children, it's such a cause of worry, So as soon as they're born, there's this negativity that my kids are deaf. So do you think we can also counsel them not to have this negative thought in their head? So this is something where we are not actually doing at Orjet, but I can do this with MBM. And the fact is, since the classes are free, it's not a problem. At MBM, we are taking English classes also, right? And we meet parents. They come to our center. So Orjet and MBM are also partners, right? But then, there are a lot of misconceptions. They think cochlear implant would solve all the communication issues. Going for speech therapy would make their child. But look at me, I'm a deaf person. I'm hearing. My parents are deaf. I'm hearing. What's the worry? We try to show this kind of a model where deaf parents then try to, understand that it's not a big deal. But see, this is just in our community, what we are doing in this group. What about the entire country? We need a lot more awareness, specifically on social media, which we do plan to have accessible videos in ISL as well as voice. For example, there's school there's Sibaji Panda, there is Sunil. We need to show more deaf role models, where automatically then parents will, remove this negative thing in their head that, our deaf kid would not be able to do anything. And being deaf, there's nothing wrong with that. So the responsibility is on us. We have a lot of planning to do. When, parents come to the MBM centers, there are questions like, how would our kid work in the future? What jobs will they do? I say jobs. For that, they have to get skills. But then where are the jobs, right? We need more opportunities and positions also. Yes. Deaf role models. We need to have more successful content on successful deaf role models. Absolutely agree on that, Rajesh. Yeah, Gayatri, you want to share something?
Just for your response, Rajesh, because I think what really stood out for me personally when you were sharing was the fact that the focus is on communication. It's not about English, right? How do we strengthen the bonds between, children and the others in their social circle? That really stood out for me because it also, I felt connected with what was shared earlier by Pavitra, that one is you watch the story or whatever content is available, but that's not the end goal. It's a means to something much bigger, which is where you actually talk about it, have conversations about it, start thinking about it, and you're able to know that what you feel, somebody else may not feel the same way. So you can actually talk about that. So I feel that the fact that content which you can relate to gives way for such opportunities is what I think we all want for children, deaf and hearing. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective. And while it's lovely to know that already there's so much initiatives that you all do with the deaf parents, really looking forward to know, how it will go with the hearing parents as well and what their reactions will be, when more interactions with them happen. And also what you mentioned about role models, couldn't agree more. And also I think links to what was shared by Pallavi about having a deaf superhero, which essentially is all about relating to, what you see. So thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Rajesh. Can we have our next panelist, Ankit? Gayatri, yes, can you please ask the question?
So Ankit, we've already been.
Sorry, 1 minute.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, the interpreter, yeah.
Thank you for the self-inclusion, Ankit. I didn't realize I was so busy looking at my notes because I'm taking so many notes. I'm learning so much. So I didn't even realize the interpreter is not there for a moment. Okay. So when it comes to what we want to ask you, Ankit, I mean,
No
we
problem.
know that, we heard from Chintan about how it's also important to teach sign language to the parents. And even Rajesh was mentioning that, there are certain topics that can be taught. And we know that at Haryana, you all have been teaching Indian Sign Language to parents, and this has been going on for some time. So we wanted to know from you if you can just share what has been happening at Haryana. What have you been teaching the parents, and what has the impact? What has the impact of teaching ISL to them been? Have you seen any difference in the way parents and children now bond because they know ISL? And just before you answer your question, there's a slight switch in the inclusion. We'll now have Pallavi who will be giving voice for the Ankit. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So we're all set. So 2015, before 2015, none of the teachers in Haryana Welfare Society knew sign language. Plus, obviously, parents had no awareness about sign language. The name that you see, Haryana Welfare Society, right now, I mean, the history was completely different. So there was no sign language actually present. So what we decided, with a permission of the chairperson, that like we want to have sign language classes for everybody in 2016. So there were no deaf teachers, right? So no Indian Sign Language teachers, no deaf teachers. So who would be teaching sign language? Teachers used to just come, and then parents were dropping the kids and going back, and there was no communication. There was no bonding as such. And that's the key, right? That's the most valuable thing, that you are able to communicate with your parents. So we got parents onto our side. We had sign language. We had Deepak, who was a deaf teacher, the first deaf art teacher, who was placed in Gurgaon, and we started the sign language classes for parents, and then later on we started having early intervention project and ISL as a subject, and everything started from there after we had classes for parents. So what we really want is to make sure that the future is better for everybody. So there are some permanent teachers, the hearing teachers with B.Ed and D.Ed, and parents. They are the key elements, key stakeholders in a deaf child's journey. So they need to be aware and they need to know sign language, both of them. And we have been telling this for so long. And like now, when parents realize that after learning sign language, the communication has become better, and it's because of sign language they're able to connect with the child. Like earlier, there was behavior issues with the child at home because there was no clear communication. Once parents realized that with sign language they're able to communicate clearly, and this happened in all 8 centers simultaneously, there was a lot of interest developed in, like, so every week on Saturday they come. The Indian Sign Language teachers are there, and there's direct communication happening between parents and the child with the ISL teacher, and telling them like how better behavior and better coordination can happen at home with the family. When COVID happened, I think if everything fell apart for 2.5 years. In COVID, there were no ISL classes. We couldn't. We were stuck, right? I mean, So parents, the sign language fluency also declined in parents as well as deaf children, and they forgot like how to sign. So online classes were also difficult because they were mostly from rural area. They didn't even have the smartphones. So we have parents from different diverse backgrounds. So to in order for cities, it's easier to have these online classes, to have resources. But when parents come from villages, we need to understand that online class might not be the solution. So during COVID, we all, teachers decided that for parents and children and ISL to be there, like we need to have some sort of meetings and communication on WhatsApp or any other platform, like basically to have parents involved throughout the journey. We had video calls on Zoom, not on Zoom, WhatsApp, like direct calls with each parent, every single parent. We used to send GIFs to them, small sign videos, so that they don't forget and they're able to recall the information that was taught to them pre-COVID. There was a lot of effort done from the part of the deaf teachers, but I think it helped so that parents are able to communicate even in COVID period. So now things are back to normal, and then we're having those regular ISL classes. Again, not everybody comes, but yeah.
Like Ankit said, just want to add, teaching ISL to parents, after they learn the connection with their parents, in a year or so, do you think it has changed? What kind of transformation have you seen? And do you think the parents are happy, the children are happy? What's the before and after kind of a comparison? After them joining the early intervention or the ISL classes, before they were bored or not connected. Can you talk a little about that?
Right. So we collected some information from the parents, and again, like it's not same for everyone. Sometimes like when they see the deaf child, when they like to watch like how the teacher is teaching to their deaf child, and then when the deaf child is communicating with the parent, they automatically feel that joy. And then parent, you sign, like they say mama sign apple, or and that's how the bonding actually happens. So in classes we have parents coming in. Some parents are like they have jobs and they have commitments, they can't come every day. So there we see communication lag, but when this joy is experienced with the parents, I think there are obviously some parents who are not very keen on learning sign language, and sometimes they give excuses. Sometimes it's actually true that they don't have the time.
Thank you. Gayatri? Oh, sorry. There is a WhatsApp group also, and you keep sharing information on that. Do you think it's going well?
Right. So those WhatsApp groups, like there is something called ISL Club that we have created that has been going on, and it's for everyone, not just parents. Like it's for any general person, like any public, any person who's interested in sign language can join that club. And if suppose you're from the family, like it's given free of cost. There's no cost of it. And like people who have no background or no connection with the deaf community, they have to pay. So the idea for us to start this is to encourage parents and family members to learn sign language. So twice a week we have classes, and it has been going on so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all these stories. Hopefully, because it's a responsibility of parents to learn sign language. Only then can they connect with these kids. And I hope, there is more of this.
What we're doing is not enough. Haryana is not enough. It's just one state. It's a small, bit that we're doing. Like all of us need to like figure out how to take this forward for the entire country. This model needs to be copied.
Absolutely. India, at HR, Haryana only, but we also have Orchid Foundation, like what they are doing. So they have a deaf team. So things are growing, you see. And soon these things might the dots are connected, and, it spreads like fire, because in Karnataka also, there are things we need to do. Materials are required, videos are required. There's so much which individually you guys are doing. So hopefully, we can collaborate a little more, and there's more visibility so that people can connect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankit.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can I add a little?
Yeah, I think what I would like to add is not my own. It's just that there have been many people who've been actively saying things on chat, and I just don't want the others to miss it. So I'm just going to read it out because it's connecting to what our panelists have already shared. So Kavya has said that she completely agrees with Pallavi that we need to have content in the print format. This will also bridge the gap in providing access to deaf children in learning English, which is one of the barriers we see among the community today. And then we have Yashika, who has said that Pavitra and Pallavi loved how you highlighted the need for inclusive stories and content for deaf children. Glad to know the platforms available. Another thing which I would like to mention about the collaboration between deaf and hearing organizations is as we work together, we can create inclusive content. That's very true, Yashika. Thank you so much. We also have a very interesting idea by Pallavi, where she has said that we can have a workshop for a cohort of deaf artists and deaf storytellers with experts in the field to guide them about the process will be great. If Hear a Million can take this up and we have at least one deaf superhero from India, it would be brilliant. Love the idea, Pallavi. Thank you so much. And we also have Kavya, who has said that just like in the National Summit for the Deaf in June, we had someone called Prasad from Goa. He mentioned that there are various discussions that we can have for the deaf community at the Purple Fest. So for those of you who don't know, Purple Fest is an event which started last year, very one of its kind inclusive event in Goa, which was all about celebrating disability inclusion. And it's happening again next year in January. So going back to what Kavya says, one of the themes is education. So we can also look at workshops and the discussion on inclusive education for the deaf at Purple Fest, if the team can, work with them on this. I don't know, Tushar, I'm feeling very hopeful. I feel that one is people have shared ideas here, but so much can be done even after this, after the webinar, right? I'm feeling very hopeful that things will be taken forward. What do you feel, Tushar?
Absolutely. Yes, I agree, Gayatri. So all these various ideas, people like Rajesh and the Orchid Foundation, Pallavi, Pavitra, early intervention, there's so many platforms. So we can work together, focusing on storytelling, successful role models, deaf and hearing parents, for them to learn, open their minds, and connect with their kids, because this is so important, so critical, because we see this is a major challenge in our country. Parents are unable to connect with their kid, and HAM can't do and solve all these problems alone. We need your support. We need to work together to bring about this change.
Yeah, true.
Remove Ankit. Same.
Thank you. Thanks, Pallavi. So I think one thing we can do, which is something that Tushar had mentioned earlier, is we can actually share our screen and show you all some of the resources that our panelists introduced to all of us today. And I'm sure that there are many, many more such channels or initiatives available. We are just showing a few examples. And what we have done is we have just made sorry, would you like to add something, Tushar?
Yes, just a bit. So, Gayatri, are you going to take over sharing all these resources, websites, etc.? Are you going to take
Yeah,
that?
I can share my screen and show it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, great.
Yeah. So so going back, I mean, we'll just share our screen, and what we've done is for every initiative that has been introduced today, on the screen we will also have a QR code underneath it. So as the screen is on, if any of you want to scan the QR code, you can do that, so that post this webinar. You all can actually explore the links at your own leisure. And I want to thank Pavitra for this idea, because initially we were only going to show the logos. And then she suggested, why not QR codes? Because that makes it easier for people to actually explore it. And so I will be sharing my screen now, and I would urge all of you to just take a couple of seconds to scan the QR code so that. On the screen, we have 4 logos with 4 QR codes. The first is the Signs and Stories. Then we have 2 initiatives from Haryana. First is the Digital Sign Language Lab, and the third is the Early Intervention Program. And the 4th QR code is of Orjet Foundation website.
Tushar, I think, would be explaining.
Yeah.
Okay, Tushar would explain.
No, Gayatri is explaining.
I'll be explaining it. Yeah, I was just waiting for a minute.
Should that be signed, interpreted as well, right?
Yeah. Is it okay if I go ahead and explain it?
Just a second, please. So what we can now do is, many people are on mobiles, right? So we are going to have just the interpreter, right? So that people can see. And we are going to remove all the other spotlight. Yeah, we can start.
Okay, all right, thank you. So on the screen, we have the first logo, which is Signs and Stories. And if you scan the QR code, it will take you to the YouTube channel, which I have now opened up. So would urge all of you to, subscribe to Signs and Stories. There are already a lot of stories available in 3 levels. Okay, sorry, I think I was only sharing my screen and not my entire window. Sorry about that. I'll just re-share, sorry. Yeah, all right. So I now have the YouTube channel of Signs and Stories on my screen, and there are already a lot of stories available on the channel in 3 different levels: level 1, level 2, level 3. So depending on the age group, depending on the level of English proficiency, would urge everybody here to explore the stories. So that's Signs and Stories for everybody. Next, we have 2 initiatives from Haryana Welfare Society. First is the Digital Sign Language Lab, and second is the Early Intervention. So I'm just going to go back to YouTube and show you all, the initiatives on YouTube. Here we go. So this is the Digital Sign Language Library, which Ankit and Pallavi spoke of. Again, a lot of playlists here with content related to leisure, fun, and also education, be it science and technology. We also heard of deaf role models, so we have playlists here. So a lot of playlists that I'm sure you all can explore at your own time. So this is Sign Library. And the next initiative is the Early Intervention Project. So here as well, there are a lot of different playlists. You have storytelling, you have a lot of celebrations. Say Raksha, we recently had Raksha Bandhan, so you can see a lot of very sweet kids, doing the role plays. So would definitely urge you all to check it out. So that's what is Haryana Welfare Society. And the next one is the website of Orjet Foundation. That's the 4th QR code. So here, like Chintan and Rajesh mentioned, you can go to the resources section on the website, and there's a lot of material, for different stakeholders. So, would urge you all to check that out. So these are just some of the resources that were spoken of in today's panel discussion. Additionally, we also have some other partners under Here a Million, like ISH News, ISH for Kids. Then we have MDM that Rajesh spoke of. We have Uniki. And under each logo, you have the QR code, which you can make a note of. And like I said earlier, this is not the be all and end all. This is just a jhalak, a sample. There are many, many initiatives already. We do have a long way to go, but at the same time, a lot of work has been done. So I would really encourage everyone here to just see what has been done and to celebrate that. And of course, hopefully that will motivate us to keep going. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and would request Tushar to be pinned as well.
Fantastic. So we are almost towards the end of our program. There's some things which we would quickly like to point out. First of all our panelists, Pavitra, Pallavi, Rajesh, Chintan, and Ankit. Thank you so much for agreeing to be with us on this panel. These people are doing some fantastic work, and thank you so much for using this platform and sharing this information. Thank you all the participants, because we have a lot of deaf as well as hearing people. We have parents who have joined us. Thank you so much for being with us. Next, we would like to thank the sign language interpreters, Saurav and Dr. Renuka, for providing sign language access and voice. We want to thank Charu for being the managing the admin part, and all the Hear a Million team for ensuring that we did the social media part, explained everything, sent out the videos, etc. And also thank you, Gayatri. Thanks, Tushar. Yeah, there were some things I would quickly like to add.
Sorry, has Chintan, you raised your hand. Would you like to add something, Chintan?
Yes, yes. Yes, I would. Yes, you are on spotlight already, Chintan. So what Rajesh said, I totally agree. I just would quickly like to add some things. That hearing kids, when they grow up, the age group 5 to 8 years, but with deaf children, that quick development during that 5 to 8 years doesn't happen. It happens much later in age, right? And a lot of information or communication which is happening with these deaf kids is very, very minimalistic, very gesture-ish. How does the cognitive process, work like this? It's like a bulb turning off and on, off and on. It's not consistently on. Because this age group is so very important. If we have consistent access to sign language, and not just very repetitive or just, scolding them, don't do this, don't do that. That's not how children learn, Yeah, I understand what you're saying, that by the time the kids are 5 to 6 years, they are talking to their parents, asking them questions. There's so much. But Chintan here, that we are like, we work together. I was with my family, Manan was also there, and we were in the train. So, Manan flew, but we were on the train. So, my kid answered that in the flight, you have no enjoyment. You just sit and you reach your destination. But my kid said in the train, we have so much of time, we're communicating, we are talking, we have so much of time. So you understand how this works. He's thinking about the question and responding. So this is the benefit of having accessible language. Thanks. Thank you, Chintan. Thanks for sharing. Okay, the IECGD, the platform which Manan has. So if both Orchid Foundation and the IECGD can work together, there's a lot of work they're doing in the field of GK, general knowledge, games, interesting educational activities. So what we can do is also use both platforms and share information on both the platforms, right? Yeah, Rajesh, there was something you wanted to share. Can we please spotlight? Yeah, there was something just came to my mind, that we want to see results. We want to see what makes deaf children successful. So Deaf Enabled Foundation, they have quiz competitions regularly. And, they put up photos of the winners. And I see so many kids from Orchid Foundation getting the winning position. Uniki also has competitions, national competitions. I see the kids who are winning are from Orchid Foundation. They're our kids. Then the IECGD program, Manan's platform, the competitions which they are winning are students from Orchid. So, that makes us really happy that what we are doing is helping these kids. Because we are responsible for, the few hours which we have with them. But what they're doing outside is what makes us happy, When they are winning positions like quiz competitions, games, etc., we know these kids can navigate. We know these kids are strong. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajesh. Thank you for sharing these stories. I'm sure you're very proud at the success of these kids. All right. We'd like to apologize that we were not able to take your questions, but we will ensure that the next webinar we are going to have regarding the similar kind of a topic, we will take your questions. So please hold on to your questions. We will surely